If we could all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Mayor McKay,
Here?
Vice Mayor Jablonski,
Here.
They are.
Councilmember Fisickelli, Councilmember Hartman,
Here.
Councilmember Schroeder.
Here.
We have a quorum, Mayor.
Okay,
Want to make a motion to excuse Councilmember Fisickelli?
Second.
okay. Call the question.
Councilmember Hartman,
Yes.
Councilmember Schroeder,
Yes.
Councilmember, Vice Mayor Jablonski,
Yes.
Mayor McKay.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okie doke. So, public comment?
Yep.
Do we have any public
Yeah,
comments?
sure, Mayor. The rules of public comment are in the town's agenda. We have multiple public comment cards tonight. Every speaker is entitled to 2 minutes to talk about non-agenda items. We're having more. I'm going to list out them in order to start. Christine Johnson is 1. Manny Iribar is 2. Bill Bryce is 3. Steve Bright Cruz is 4.
Russell, you want to fix our clock back there?
It's
Oh,
got
is it?
power up. Yep.
Okay.
There it is. Should be there now. Takes a second. There it is. We're ready to go, Mayor.
Christine Johnson.
Good afternoon. This is one of the first meetings I've been to, except for the one that we had on Tuesday, where it's my understanding that you approved a resolution that eliminated the agricultural fire assessment on the barns. It's my understanding you also eliminated the 5 commercial structures that were assessed commercial. I think that's really my understanding right now, and I'm sorry I don't have more comments. I'm sure my colleagues will. Thank you.
Keith is.
Manny Iribar, followed by Bill Bryce. I'm sorry? Okay, you did not yield time, but he doesn't want to speak? Okay.
Good evening, Councilman. My name is Bill Bryce. I'm here on behalf of my client, Diamond.
If you could pull that mic up a little more so we'd hear you.
Is that better?
Yes.
Perfect. My name is Bill Bryce. I'm an attorney at Camus, Clayton, and Wolf. I represent Diamond Eye Properties and Dr. Iribar with respect to the property at 6200 Southwest 130th Ave. Mr. Kalis is a partner of my firm, was in attendance on Tuesday, and he was addressing the disparate treatment of my client's property with respect to the fire assessment for the fiscal year 2019-2020, wherein the remaining properties that were illustrated were granted for a 1-year stay on and being classified as an agricultural vacant parcel for the means of assessing the fire assessment. Now, in the motion that was not passed, it was our understanding that the caveat was that the original properties were not inclusive of the 5 particular properties, including my client's property, to be assessed the agricultural vacant classification. My understanding is that that measure failed. The revised resolution, which was ultimately passed, was conveyed the understanding that the reason that was ultimately passed is because the disparate treatment that was associated with my client's property was remedied, and that all properties that had the agricultural vacant class would include all of the properties that have a barn structure in excess of $10,000. Now, my understanding is that Councilmember Hartman, that was your understanding that all of the properties, including my client's property, were to be included in that agricultural vacant category, as well as Mr. Kalis, as well as the other members of the audience that were in attendance on Tuesday night. I wanted to bring it to the council's attention that there's nowhere in the ordinance where our client should be treated disparately with respect to assessing the fire assessment vis-a-vis their categorization as a commercial property. commercial property. Our client is not a commercial property in the same light as a Lowe's or a Walgreens or a Home Depot. My client's property is similarly situated to the other pole barns or other structures that properties that contain a barn, whereby they have a horse stables or they may have a rental agreement with people that are renting access to the stables. But in no way, shape, or form is my client's structure differently situated than other structures that will be afforded the agricultural vacant status for fiscal year 2019-2020. Having said that, we're here to present to the council members to correct that error and also
I'll give him 1 more minute.
to correct that error, excuse me, and also to have my client's property as well as the other 4 that were excluded from that agricultural vacant category for 2020 to be retrospectively included with respect to calculating the fire assessment for the fiscal year 2019-2020.
Thank you. Steve Bright Cruz, followed by Gay Chapels, followed by David Kaczynski.
Mayor, Council, Steve Bright Cruz, 5120 Southwest 195th Terrace. Well, school is definitely back in session, and the Franklin Academy is filling up. So the traffic out west is significantly worse than we've ever seen. I've ever seen it the entire time I've lived out here. If you will recall, when that structure was approved by Pembroke Pines, a traffic study was done by Pembroke Pines. And it just squeaked under, my recollection is less than 5 cars. Matter of fact, my recollection is 1 car, but we'll go with less than 5 cars, but squeaked under what would be required to expand Griffin Road as part of that project. Somehow, some way, it squeaked under by a single car, as I recall. I think we can do another traffic study now, and I think it will find that it far exceeds the limit that's allowed on that road, given its current 1 lane each direction. And if we can do that or have Broward County do that, I think that will be a huge step forward to getting Broward County to bump that up in their list of projects to do, and be able to finally widen that road and relieve the traffic that's out there, make it safer for everybody out there, put in the bike lane when they do that, as they've done through the rest of the road. And yes, there is an Amber Alert going off like crazy right now, but that's okay.
Third time.
It's important. This is our opportunity. The traffic is there. We need to do a study, or even better yet, we need to contact Broward County to do the study so that we're able to get this road widened. Thank you.
Thank you. Gay Chapels, followed by David Kaczynski, followed by Fred Cox.
Gay Chapels, I live on Dykes Road and Sterling. And several years back, I did complimentary banners on my fence. My area loved it. Some of them participated in it. None of them were made for profit on my part. None of them, they were really a public service. A gentleman that lives in Sunshine Ranches, and I know who it is because it's public record. I'm not going to say his name, complained, and we are reactive in this town. And so I removed all my signs, told everybody right across the street they get $500 a sign for a school year. Their fence line is loaded, but I won't do it. Davey doesn't really care, by the way. Now, we have a shopping center. We're anti-business in this town. We have a shopping center down on Sheridan, and then we have Tom Thumb on the other end of Dykes Road. They did not, the people that took over Applebee's, put up signs to let the public know that they had a lunch special. and they had 2 banners on one side and 2 banners on the other. This gentleman filed a complaint again in that shopping center because he happens to have an office there, and comes across Sterling Road and sees it. So the man removed them, or he was going to be penalized. So he removed them. Very upset, because what happened was he got a big lunch crowd, and then they disappeared because they thought it was just a 10-day deal. I came in here and asked, it was $450 for 10 days to put up a sign. So what I did was I called the guy and I said, bring them on down. I'll put them 40 feet inside my property line. And I did. And they don't bother me, but they sure bothered that guy again from Sunshine Ranches. Here he comes. Reported me. I would have been fined $250 a day if I had not removed them. So I let them stay to the limit, and then I took them down. We are not proactive. We are reactive. This gentleman chooses to harass me or anybody that he happens to come in contact on his route. But the rest of the town has banners. In fact, right next to this place is more ads, more banners. That didn't bother him, only this new restaurant's banners. So I would like to see you all address signs. I don't want to enforce anything. I'd like to leave these people alone. There was a day when somebody went around in Sunshine Ranches and reported selective groups, and they had to remove their signs, but the next door neighbors
Didn't give another minute.
So I wish you would look at it. Take time and look at it. I think it's very unfair. Thank you.
David Kaczynski, followed by Fred Cox, followed by Catherine Cox, followed by Sandra Bauer.
David Kaczynski, 6411 Holity Trail. President of Sunshine Ranches Homeowner Association. I had nothing to do with that. But I just want to let everybody know that our general meeting is going to be Wednesday night right here. And we're going to have a guest speaker, Greg Rossman, who specializes in estate planning. And if anybody has any concerns about estate planning, come on out, ask questions, and have a good evening. Thanks.
Good evening, Fred Cox, 4940 Thoroughbred Lane.
And the mic just a little more, Fred, please.
It wasn't me, Mary Gay, but the group that turned you in on the signs. But the group that used to go, no, I'm telling you who it wasn't me. But the group that used to go around town and turn people in, I thought was you, Doug, and Dee years ago. Legal pit. Okay. Excellent. Well, good. I'll stand corrected. Hello again. I haven't finished my 2 minutes. Haven't finished my 3 minutes. I'll try to be brief and quick. I think I left off was wondering why staff of our town thought that our fire fees were too low. So I thought, well, maybe there's somewhere in the county that pays really high fire fees. So I looked up, and I don't know if it's this Andy Burns, but there is an Andy Burns in Deerfield Beach. His fire fee is going up from $175 to $235. Wow, would I love to see $235. There's a Russell Munoz in Davie, I believe it's the one and the same, who has a house and a barn and pays $206. Wow. And there's a Martin Sherwood of Cooper City, I believe the architect of our proposed barn assessment fees, who paid $161.28 last year, and he's paying $161.28 this year. Congratulations, Marty. Back to my house, my barn, my house, my barn, my house, and my barn, all added together, don't equal one of the houses in the town. They're paying $540. I don't understand why someone wants to charge me more than $540. A few weeks ago, my good friend Dee told me, a barn is a barn is a barn. You know, lightning looks down, the lightning gods or weather, they don't say, is that an egg barn? Or, is that a non-egg barn? No, unfortunately, it strikes. So we all need to be equally protected by the fire. And gee whiz, We've had certified farms and Southwest ranches since 2003. There's a list of 163 of them. You too can request it from public records, Val Russell. We've never taxed them. I don't intend to or ask you to, but I am still complaining about the supposedly intent of taxing my barn. Taxing means fire assessment fee. I could go on. I see my time's coming up. We have businesses. You know, when we started the town, we said we're going to ignore the businesses. We're going to allow people to have horses. We're going to be friendly. There's B&Bs in the town. There's plumbing companies in the town. There's electric welders. They all use the barn as businesses, real businesses, not boarding horses. I have nothing. My house is going to burn, and my barn is going to burn 10 bales of hay. And that goes down to 1, and then back to 10. Thanks a lot. I appreciate the support Tuesday night.
Catherine Cox, followed by Sandra Boyer, Jim Lasky. Final speaker is David Sears.
Kathy Cox, 4940 Thoroughbred Lane. I don't envy any of you up here. I served on the Davie County Council for 9 years, and it's always a tough shot. It's not an easy job. Everybody thinks it's all great and glamorous, and it's not. It's always hard. And what's really hard is when you have to vote against your friends. That's the really hard part. What I found is, from my experiences, that you need to do what's right. What's right. And I don't think any of you has a problem with knowing what's right. You might get kind of clouded in all the commotion and the hoorah out here, but you probably fundamentally know what's right, and you can do that. What happened to the McBrides was not right. That was really a travesty. And I really wonder if any of you have asked how much it cost the town to engage in that lawsuit. Now, Mr. Polikoff corrected me that, well, the town didn't sue them, they sued the town. They sued the town because they were being treated unfairly. You know, the guy to the east of them had a 12-foot trail that the town gave him a permit to put his fence out there and make the trail narrow. We all went to court over, 2 feet. I wonder what that cost you and what it cost me. And when you figure out how much the 9-foot chain link fence the town bought to put up on his property cost, how much the 2 police officers that went there to help the contractor put it up or to intimidate him into putting it up, and how much the contractor cost us, not to mention all the legal fees. And that's what I really think that you, 4 council members, need to look at. Now, saying that, what happened to the McBrides wasn't fair, I'm going to say what happened to Diamond Eyed Stables and the other stables that were assessed this fee was also not fair. And you need to do what's right. It's pretty common knowledge among the horse community that if you want to make a small fortune with horses, you start with a big one, because it just isn't something that you make money at. And I think Mr. Sherwood probably, he's kind of like a city guy, I think. So I don't think he really understands what horse business is about. We do it because we love it, not because we're going to make money. It's not that commercial of an enterprise. But I think that you, as a council, need to make a decision about doing what's right. And you can do that. And you may have to go against your attorney, but that's no big problem. He works for you. Yes. You don't work for him.
Thank you. Sandra Boyer, followed by Jim Lasky. Final speaker, David Sears. I apologize if I'm... Okay, no problem. Jim Lasky, final speaker, David Sears.
My head's swirling. Marty, I didn't know you were getting into horses. You just got a pickup truck, and now you're into horses, too. You should have talked to some people first. But anyway, Kathy was right. What's right? How much of the fire cost is centered around a horse? How much of the overhead? You're not going to send, alternative life support or whatever the heck is. That's not part of a a fee that could be applied to a horse with a barn in it, or a barn with a horse in it. Okay, it doesn't even make sense. How can you charge for something you're not going to deliver? You're going to charge for a product extravagantly, okay, for something you're not going to deliver to a horse. That's not fair at all. And the arbitrary nature of why you're laying out these fees, you know, I asked a week or so ago, Russell, I sent him a note wanting to know about all the one-on-one advisements that you all get before you vote on anything in these meetings. If that's not true, then tell me right now. You don't ever get a briefing from Andy on what you're going to vote on and the details of voting on it, so you would know the criteria of the basis for what you're voting on, correct? Or am I saying it wrong? Somebody wants to correct me. Now's the time to do it. Because I always thought you got all the details in advance before a meeting. Well, I asked for the notes on that, and I haven't got them yet, but that would be interesting to read. Anyway, we have to do, in the end, what's really right. We're a small town. We all know each other. I mean, come on, you don't want to do that stuff where you live. Anyway, thank you.
David's the final speaker, Mayor.
Okay.
David Sears, Future 5501 Southwest 130 Avenue. Remind me to come back to Franklin Academy, because that was the real reason for talking. First thing you guys need to do is find a way to get people to stop slandering you guys up on there and pass some resolution to where this stops, because this is getting a little ridiculous.
We have.
To where people aren't going to run for office anymore because of this. Secondly, if you guys would allow Tractor Supply in here, we wouldn't be worrying about the fire assessment. Nobody wants to talk about the traffic. I talk about the church. I was told I'm wrong on that. Go out there, it's Sunday at noon, and it's just as bad as it is when Franklin Academy's there. Don't you need two means of egress with Franklin Academy? Because they only have one, and you got to gate the other way. We need to find a way to open that up to where everybody goes down that nice street, 199th, and the backside, and have two means of egress. That's the reason we put up Cypress Bay. That's the reason we got that bridge over there in Bonaventure, which half of that traffic goes down Griffin Road isn't us, it's all Weston. But this is getting a little ridiculous, because if we would have had some commercial properties here, we wouldn't be arguing about a fire assessment. That's the bottom line. You know, and if you have an ag exemption, that saves you thousands upon thousands of dollars, right? And we're worried about $900,000, $2,000. Thank you.
Okay, board reports. Any board reports? Take your time.
Okay. On the Parks Board, we had a meeting. You gave me 30 days to come back to you with suggestions or motions, actually. We had, I believe, 4 motions, but we addressed the west side of 190th from Griffin Road all the way to the end, the south end of the property. And it pretty much, the feedback was, and we voted and approved, a PVC railing instead of doing chain link all the way around the place. The chain link is in the front. Then it was suggested evidently by Country Estates, some of the members that attended, that they would like, and I haven't had a chance to talk to December, they would like some tenting over the play area, like the swings and maybe the slide. There's one big combination. If we could cover that one, see how much it is first. I just want you to know that we did make motions, and we're going to move forward to see the cost and just exactly what to do. That was one motion, and the other motion was because of all the trees and everything that are right up against the play area, that they wanted to fence it in and go from the east side of the play area, which has just a regular decorative railing up, put the chain link there on the south side, come down and go around the bathrooms to Griffin Road. So it kind of chain links in that area to keep those kids, if the parents are up in the pavilion and they're down playing, they don't have to be jumping up and down to run after them. The kids kind of run around, but they can get into the wooded area, which is directly on the east side. So that was something else that we looked at. We need to get the footage and the cost. We had suggested maybe if we didn't trade off the 330 feet that we bought already, I don't know how many feet is left, if we were to utilize that to fence in that area. The other thing that we also addressed there was we wanted to have a contest for people to come up with ideas on the entranceway, something creative, and put it out to the public, members, residents of the town. Anybody can do it, kids, adults, whatever. And the theme would be fishing hole, because that's what it originally was. It was the fishing hole park. So the theme would be fishing hole. Use your imagination. It does not mean we're going to be committed to it. It means that we're going to get some ideas, see what the ideas are, what it would cost, and even maybe vote on it and then put it over here and fund it. But we want to do something and move forward with this. And the last thing that we did was get volunteers to clear out all of the exotics that are growing in there in little sections. You can't go in there and clear the whole thing out, but it is choking out the oak trees in there to the point where the pachopias now are twice the size of the oaks. And they were pretty good sized oaks. They were as high or higher than those flags. And now the pachopias have just covered them. So they really need to come out of there. And then there's a lot of holly on the east side of the play area. It's now encroaching on it. So all of that needs to be addressed. But we want to do it in little sections so that we can have it hauled away and it doesn't become a mess. It would become it's 17 acres. That doesn't mean the whole 17 acres, but it's a lot of land with a lot of exotics mixed in with the natives. So that was the final thing that we voted on, and that's to be done with volunteers and supervision from December, because December is licensed to identify the natives against the invasive trees and plants. So that's it. That's what we were up to, and we did clear the debris. A volunteer took it out on Calusa Corners, so that Calusa Corners looks pretty good now. Thank you.
Mayor, can I just ask a couple of clarifying questions?
Go right ahead.
Sure.
So, Gay, you're talking about a 3-rail PVC fence, because you said PVC fence. I'm assuming you meant a 3-rail white one like we've got around the other parks?
Just like the ones that are around the rest of the parks.
I just want to make sure everybody understands what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Because I know what you meant by PVC, but
Yeah, right now it's chain link that's kind of falling down.
now the fence you were talking about to go around the tot lot, I think we figured out that's about 700 feet of fence.
Which would mean we'd be about maybe 350 feet short.
Now, the other stuff you remember, I think, is 6 feet tall. Do you really want to put 6
Not
foot tall
really.
fence?
I'd rather put a 4-foot fence
Yeah,
up.
so I'm not sure if that's suitable. And you also
Well-
talked about a gate.
I need to find out where they purchased it, and I do
Trade
a
it
lot
in.
of fencing. I might be able to talk them into taking a trade.
Right. All right, just a couple other things. You made a sun cover over the tot lot?
Correct.
Okay, got it. And then you were really talking about a contest for a design concept, not really a design like you'd get from an architect or an engineer.
Well,
The
in other
idea.
words, yeah, but if an architect decides they want to go,
Oh, sure.
balls to the wall, then yeah, we would take it.
Good, good.
But the theme is Fishing Hole Park.
Right.
But
Okay.
it was brought up that we still maintain the name, which is,
20 years old, right?
huh?
20-year-old name.
Yeah, no, Fishing Hole Park has always stuck.
Right.
But you're, the group out there,
Country Estates.
Country Estates.
Right.
I'm just stuck
all
on
right.
Fishing Hole. they wanted to make sure Country Estates was going to be included in the name, and we
Right.
said absolutely. It's just you can't have a theme for Country Estates, so
Good.
we went with that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Doug.
You're welcome.
Steve Brightcruz, Comp Board. Just a couple of quick updates. The board was able to complete its work on the nursery ordinance that we've been working on for a while. So, and we voted that to head to the council again. I'm pleased to say that we were able to approve the final version unanimously, so the board was fully behind it. This is the third time it's coming to the council. I was actually on the council the first time it came, so it's been a while. I do hope that this time, with the unanimous approval of the board, that we can pass it. The other thing is we were given 2 meetings to work on the land use options out west on US 27, the properties out there. We did our groundwork at the last meeting, and we do hope to have that completed in the next meeting. Thank you.
Okay.
Good evening, George Morris, Chair of the Drainage Board. We just had a few things we worked on the last meeting. We worked on the Green Meadows drainage plan that we're excited we're having moving forward, and we were working on different materials and concepts of drainage, etc. So we made some recommendations on that, as well as we're also weighing the pros and cons of doing a drainage plan study out west versus the one they also have one out east, but we're more concentrating on one particular out west. So those are some of the things that may be forwarded to you soon. Thank you.
No additional board reports? Okay. Council member comments. Who would like to go first? Gary?
Yep, I'll go. Thank you, Mayor.
Gladly.
Thank everybody for coming. Some interesting discussion and public discussion. First, let me get some of the items I wanted to talk about out of the way. First off, we had our photo contest finished, and the entries are all over there. I think we had 63 of them. And the pecking order for each month was, and I'd like to read them just to, if everybody will indulge me here. The front cover was Natalie Solo. It's the Boots, Barnes, and My Best Friend. It's in the upper left-hand corner there. Miss January was Stephanie Morris. February was Mrs. Barbara Callis. March was Mr. March, George Callis. April was Matthew Morris. May was Kelly Garcelle. June was Sage Sameta. July was Miss July was Madison Sullivan. Miss August was Savannah Hodges. September was Jimmy, I'm probably going to mess this up, but Kangamine. October was Barbara Heller, and November was Alexis Guerrier, and December was Rose Guerrier. And the photos are really nice. If you take a look at them, they really exemplify our lifestyle, the equestrian nature, and the farm animals, and the various four-legged friends that we have in our town, that we certainly encourage everybody to participate. Next year, I believe they're working on the theme for that for next year, and this will be in the calendar for this year. Another thing I want to mention is a food truck event tomorrow night at it's the Hawks Bluff and the Education Advisory Board at the Equestrian Park from 5 to 9. It's a lot of kids. It's a lot of fun. I encourage everybody to go. Bring your chair and watch everything. It's really interesting. The bingo at the barn is this Saturday. Dinner starts at 6 p.m. I think you can still get tickets at the main office. And just a noteworthy item: town hall's closed on Labor Day. That would be the 2nd. We have of September. We have hazmat at the barn on the 14th. It starts at 8 a.m. We're going to have shredding, and that starts at 10 o'clock. And Davie Police will be there with no questions asked, drug prescription drop-off, which is a very worthwhile thing since we're all on septics and we're not flushing it out into the ocean. It's all, contained here. The Broward County Property Appraiser is at Town Hall on the 16th from 10 to 12 p.m. or 10 to 12 p.m. noontime. The Flowmobile is here on the 21st here at Town Hall from 10 to 2, and both just council meetings in September have the first and the second budget meeting either in conjunction or prior to that. So I just wanted to mention that. Couple other things, just want to mention. One of the speakers, I just want to add a note here. One of the speakers, it's public information, was mentioning staff members and what they pay and various things. What he failed to mention was the millage rates for each one of those towns. And so the story was kind of incomplete. And they are 1 to 2 points higher than us, and we do know that their fire crews and police are subsidized through their general fund, which is a nebulous figure, which we chose not to do that so that we could keep a pulse on it and a finger on it. Now, we could easily move our fire fee into our millage and raise it up a point. That could be done in 1 year with no problem. We just charge everybody $50 a token, $50 or $100. If we chose to go that route, but we chose not to do that. We chose to keep it outside so we could keep an eye on it. So I just want to make that point, without mentioning a whole lot of names and stuff like that. But the picture is a little bit incomplete and a little bit biased, in my opinion. But at any rate, mentioning that, also mentioning we had several attorneys get up here mentioning the actions that we took on Tuesday. Just let me state for the record, I second the motion and I voted for it. And there was in no way was I excluding, including the lawsuit and the litigation and part of that. And I think the number was 37,000 or something to that effect. That was just the newly reclassified people. I don't think it had anything to do with, as I recollect. Keith, can you mention that? We modified the.
The maker of the motion can speak to intent as well.
Yeah, but I didn't think that had anything to do with that. So I just want to mention that. And that's all I have right now.
Okay. Anybody next?
Yeah, a couple things.
Go ahead, Bob.
Mayor, when we were up at League of Cities last week, lots of wheels started to turn. And when we were sitting here talking about the fire study, I thought, excellent opportunity to reach out. Now, I didn't start with a Florida League, but I reached out to Sally Cochran this week to see if they can bring in the fire studies that the rest of the municipalities in Broward presently have in place so that we can, pour over them and see some things we may want to swizzle or change or make more like another one of the municipalities. The feedback I got from them is it needs to come from our representative. I believe that's you.
It is?
So perhaps on the, September 5th meeting, you can bring it up and I'll be happy to send a note back saying that you want 2 minutes on the agenda to address it and see what we can get from some of the other cities within our county. It might be overkill to go out to the whole state.
I think I would define it a little more, make sure they have horses, equestrian, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Well, that limits it to about 3.
I wouldn't ask a whole lot of other people that don't have kind of what we have. Kind of be a waste.
Andy's saying here, we'll take them anyway.
Yeah.
Because we're not just dealing with barns and horses and all that. We're dealing with the whole thing, the whole study. Yeah, and that's kind of an important thing to bring up. When you look at the fire study, and I would really encourage people to come out when we discuss it this time, because a year from now when it's implemented and we've had plenty of resident input, there's always going to be somebody who's unhappy with it. And it's generally because they didn't participate or they're not educated on it or. But so I would ask all. I wouldn't try to, because if you start with that, it's Parkland, Southwest Ranches, and Davie, and maybe that little tiny corner of Pines down there up against 75. So, yeah, Plantation's got horses out west as well. But to me, we'd want to probably hear from everybody. So if you'd asked for that, I couldn't call you this week and say, hey, Doug, because we'd be breaking laws. So it would be great if you could do that. Maybe what I'll do is carbon Andy on the response I send him, and he can discuss it with you in whatever way is appropriate. Okay, I am not all that comfortable addressing the fire fee, my intent right now, because last night, total disclosure, I had a conversation with Manny about this whole thing, and I hadn't realized, and he did mention it, that he had sent us all a letter that, he spent a good part of yesterday probably drafting. So my name is throughout this document. I want to read this before I respond. And, I just got it just before the meeting started, so I'm not all that comfortable. In terms of my overall intent on Tuesday night, whatever has gone on in the past, my point was to put things back the way they were last year. I mean, we were discussing originally setting a fire fee for the barn in the same category as commercial. The second scenario that our section option that the administration brought to us was, well, let's assess them at the same rate as agricultural. And my response to that was, we need to take this in a thoughtful route, not just what's our next option, what's our next option. So my intent all the way along was to put it back the way it was. Now, I understand there's litigation going on. There's other barns that are concerned. Next year I want to see everybody in that category that can go in there. Now, these other, I thought I was mentioning 4 barns. I see in writing and here as I was skimming through this, 5 barns. When Keith and I tried to get better information on the number that are impacted, we got a response from the town financial administrator that I'm still working on understanding. It's a complicated answer to a simple question, but I don't think there's a simple answer for it. I mean, my goal was to put things back. I think I was very, very clear about that. I'm certainly concerned about those other barns. I don't think somebody should be paying 11 grand in fire fees on a barn, not when the one next door is not paying anything. So, if that gives more clarification on my intent, that's what it is. But after I go through this, I'd be more comfortable responding.
All right, you good? Anything else?
That's it for now. Thank you.
You want to talk at all about the league in Orlando at all?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Thank you, Doug.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, I got barns on my mind for some reason.
I just didn't want you to miss out. I know you
Yeah.
were there. I saw you there, and we all attended different
Yeah,
meetings and
yeah.
stuff.
So last week was the annual meeting of the Florida League of Cities, and I hadn't been before. I don't know if Doug and Dee had been. We're not allowed to talk about these things outside of the meetings.
Yeah, but
So what it is it's mostly all of the elected officials throughout the state of Florida, mayors, council members, as well as sometimes their staff. The governor spoke. Senator Marco Rubio sent a recorded message. It was very interesting to hear from them on their perspective. They gave out a bunch of awards and things, but I think the things that made more impact on me and hopefully on you guys, I mean, all those awards are nice and it's great for the recipients, but some of the issues that are impacting our town were discussed in detail. One was the census. The census is coming up, and we really need to make sure that that everybody fills out the documentation for the census. And the interesting thing this year is going to be that they're actually starting with an email approach versus a mailing or somebody coming to your house. They'll go that route if you don't respond, but they're trying to go digital because one of the points that they made is, my daughter never looks at the mail. She never looks for mail. If it doesn't come in email, text, or Instagram, it's out of her communications radar. And, she's 18. My 26-year-old is kind of in the same mindset. So if they're going to miss a whole demographic in our country, they could go the old route, but that's not their intent. They want to count everybody.
Bob, if I may just jump in with you
Please,
briefly.
please.
That lady was amazing. I've
Great speaker.
since reached out and invited her to come. She is coming. Emily, when's she coming?
Good.
So she's coming, going to do a presentation for us or whatever, but she was amazing.
Good.
Yeah.
The other thing that I thought was really cool is they gave us this map of Broward County and the response rates of the last census. And, you know, and I want to give kudos to Emily because Emily continues to orchestrate the census volunteer committee to make sure that we get the top response that we can get. Our response rate, our lack of response, so I guess I could invert it and say our response is roughly 93%. There are parts of Broward County where it's 7%, 10%. Now, people don't think it's important, and she gives some great examples, which I hope she shares with us.
Yep.
But everybody thinks, well, that, you know, that's how they carve up the number of the districts for the House of Representatives for the United States. Well, she also said, and please don't quote me on the numbers, she'll be back with them, but about 75% of all appropriations that come down from Senate and Congress, or from Congress in general, are based on census numbers. The amount of money we get for schools, for infrastructure, for, you know, promoting business, you name it. It's almost all based on the census. So, I mean, she really rams home the importance of it. And I'm just going to go there because you guys might want to touch on some other interesting things. The other thing that there's another one that I attended, another session I attended, I think is extremely important for us as well. And I've had some conversations with Russell and Andy on this. I'm sure everybody's aware of cyber attacks and phishing and getting emails from your favorite uncle in Nigeria, and, you know, don't click on emails that you don't recognize and all that. Well, all that's phishing, and that's the way the majority of the crimes are committed these days. And they talk pretty heavily, the two experts that were on the panel talked very heavily about making sure that our staff is aware of these things, because that's the majority of the attacks that come through. It's generally via email. But one of the things they brought up that I know our administration's been talking about, and I'm in IT and we talk about it at work, is this concept of ransomware, where you open something and you inadvertently let the bad guy in with that email. Something happens, they get access to your computer, whether it's a personal computer or it's the town's servers, and what they do then is they're very sneaky. They hang in the background, and oh, by the way, they're mostly in Russia and the Ukraine. And these guys will put something on your computer, and they'll just let it collect data and phone home periodically to send info back to them about your environment. Then they'll trigger it. And what that trigger does is it begins to encrypt all of the files, which means that without information they provide you back, you can't read your stuff on your computer. It becomes completely unusable. Now, 2 cities in the state of Florida have been nailed by this, and the city of Baltimore. The 2 cities in Florida, I believe, decided to pay the ransoms, which were in the orders of hundreds of thousands of dollars. Baltimore paid $35 million. And another city in the United States, and I don't recall the details because I was just, wow, this is amazing stuff. They decided not to pay the ransom and try to go to their backups. Well, they ended up paying the ransom because these nasties put stuff on their computers months ago that if they tried doing a restore from the tapes, I mean, that's what IT does. They back up to some other site or, you know, to their own tape drives or what have you. When they go to restore, it automatically trips the encryption software to go back and encrypt, so they had no way to back up, so they ended up paying. Some other cities around the country have actually said, where we can't afford to go after the data, we're going to start over again. If somebody asks for a public records request, if we've got it on paper, we'll make them a photocopy, but if it was in digital format, there's nothing they can do. You can't get something that doesn't exist, you can't provide it. So, you know, there's a lot of options. So the conversation then, as soon as I get back, was, so Andy, what are we doing about this? Because, I mean, we have an obligation to the community to make sure that the information of the town is protected. And I was pleasantly informed by Russell and Andy that, a matter of fact, the firm that was doing the presentation is the firm that our IT providers, Tamarack, is contracting to go through and do an assessment and look for the risks and help Tamarack protect our data and their data. So I just wanted to bring that up.
there were other sessions that were government related. It was very interesting. When I looked at it originally, I said, maybe I shouldn't go. And then as I started to really read through, I really looked to go to different sessions that were certainly pertinent to our town that I could bring back information and either share in meetings like this or with the administration directly. So it was worthwhile. 2 days up there. So I have enough, Doug. Thanks for reminding me of that.
Yeah, absolutely. No problem. Dee?
Yeah. There's a couple of things. I wasn't really going to touch on this tonight, but I am. I wrote here that I wanted to take a couple minutes of your time so that the council here becomes aware of a change from the MPO. Broward County provisions proposed a change that would give 4 votes more to the regular scheduled members who sit on the MPO. As you all know, Southwest Ranches only gets to vote when some of the larger cities don't attend. If this change was approved, we would rarely ever be allowed to vote for anything. The request of the county was defeated the first time, and we had to work really, really hard, as you well know, Emily. So I would like the support from the council to prepare a resolution opposing this proposed change from the MPO. Not a lot of maybe what you would consider affects us, but you don't stay right here. You go down and you hit all these roads and all these improvements that they do. And they're not just taking Fort Lauderdale's money or Davie or anybody else. They're taking your money. Metropolitan Planning Organization. So they use our monies also for these improvements. And to tell me, and I've been fighting since what? Maybe the second or third meeting that I attended, like, well, what are we, chopped liver? He said, well, a lot of this stuff doesn't even affect you. And I said, such as? Give me an example. Because my residents don't just stay here. They go to work. They go off to play. They go to a ball game. They go here. They go there. They use the airport. They use everything. And my monies go there. So at one of these meetings, and I wasn't sure if it was one maybe you attended as a guest, I said to them, there is an old saying, no taxation without representation. Oh, that was a faux pas. A big, huge faux pas. They didn't want to hear that. But it's true. If you're going to take my money, I don't have a problem with it for improving and doing whatever, but you also need to give me a voice. And the residents in this town are entitled to that.
If I can join in on what you're requesting. Basically, the county is looking to add 4 more seats so their entire board can go sit on the MPO.
And these are so the county commissioners would now have a seat. Is that what-
Exactly.
Well, no, they have one already.
They have one
They
already.
just want 4 more.
They want
What
4
would the
more.
4 more be, though? 4 more county
I'm not
commissioners
even
or
sure
staff?
if it's an
4 more
alternate.
county commissioners.
4 more county commissioners.
Yes.
Yeah,
We
I
don't
would-
have a vote.
Exactly.
Yeah, so I would
Okay.
tell you no.
Right.
We want to tell you not to support additional 4 more people
Right.
from the county. Are we all on board with that? Go ahead, Keith.
Just a suggestion.
Yeah.
I don't know this issue at all.
Okay.
But politically, I don't know where the county's at either. It's something that we should figure out. But sometimes it's better to go in the reverse and saying the town supports this, provided that we also get a seat.
Right. Thank you.
Okay.
I would tell you that's the only exception, that you support it provided we get a seat. But I don't think they
No,
get to
vote.
say whether we have a seat. I think
Well,
it's
how
the
the,
MPO's
how
call.
this originally came up is we had some of the Broward County commissioners sitting, and sometimes they came and sometimes they didn't. So they wanted to send alternates.
That's
And
fine.
you know, that's all fine and dandy, but then at the end, if the
Now they
alternate
want 4 more
comes
seats aside
and they
from
have
alternate.
all full seats, I don't get a voice. I don't
Right.
get to vote on whatever.
And if we had, let me ask you this, if we did have a vote, and let me put it a different way. If Pines has a vote, I'm assuming, Pines, Weston, Fort Lauderdale, the big cities,
Yes.
And if their person doesn't show up, do they send an alternate, or is that when you have an opportunity?
That was only for the county commissioners.
Ah, I see.
They were the exception to the rule.
So I completely agree with what Keith had said. We'd be very happy to support that as long as every member city gets a vote.
Well, every member doesn't. There's a lot of cities that come and they sit there, and if it's a full house, we don't get to vote on it.
You get to listen.
We just get to listen, and whatever they vote on is what we get.
Well, so, but how can we,
This is crazy.
Let
you know, I
draft
get submitted, draft a submittal that provided we get a permanent vote, but that, the county doesn't have a say on us getting a permanent vote. MPO does.
Understood, but we can draft it in a manner that we're happy to support it, provided that we get representation through a voting member on the board.
Yeah.
Well, that sounds more friendly, basically.
We're friendly people.
Are we?
We try to be.
Okay.
So their proposal then for the additional 4 are to the MPO.
Are to the, I'm going to assume, the Broward County people.
That's
Yeah,
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, Broward County
Okay.
to the
Broward
MPO.
County.
Yeah.
To the MPO.
There's a couple of those things that are a little lopsided. You did notice the representation at the Florida League?
Yeah.
One of our neighboring cities, I think, has 4 or 5 representatives.
Yes.
Yeah, we need to work on that.
Yeah, so.
Yeah. Pick and choose.
Yeah.
So, all right, so Keith, you're gonna figure something out on this? Okay. When's your next MPO meeting? 12th or something?
September 11th.
Okay. All right, so by next meeting.
I'd have to look on the calendar.
All right. You wanna speak about, Florida League of Cities in Orlando?
It was great. It was an eye opener. It was a good experience. As Bob stated, it was a real learning. We met a lot of interesting people. I found it quite unique that there are some cities in this town that I have never heard of. I could barely pronounce some of their names. And they just came out of the woodwork. I didn't really see anybody from Fort Lauderdale or Miami or Jacksonville or, the big ones. The ones with, all the pull and the power, I guess. But I didn't see them. But I did see a lot of our local people there. And like I said, we met a very interesting man from Arcadia, which I'm quite familiar with. I used to live over in that area, and it was beautiful, and got brought up to speed on how they've done some of their improvements and different things like that. So I think we brought some interesting information back for Andy to go through. I still have another big bag at home. I've got to drop that off. And like I said, it was quite an experience. And the census lady that is coming, you're going to love her. She is just an incredible person and very well spoken and versed, and really plays on the importance of getting every person on that list. That is crucial and important. Most of us think it's documentation for the government just to see who's who and where they're living. It's not quite like that. It is for funding and so that you fit into different categories and that you have the right amount of people to get the monies that you need for your area, because if you're only showing this much and you really have this much, you're only going to get 80% of this. So now you're way down here. So that was part of the importance. And I thought that was one of the most interesting that we did attend.
Yeah.
Even though we attended several.
Doug, can I just throw in another observation?
Go ahead.
So, fire fee being top of mind when I was up there, you meet a lot of interesting, as you said, you meet people from places I've never heard of, and I've lived here a long time. But I started asking, well, how does your town do it? How does your city do it? What do you guys do? I was flabbergasted that most cities, and I'm talking rural, I'm not talking about, Daytona Beach. Most of the cities rely on the county to provide their fire departments.
Yes.
And what they all had in common is, we're 13 square miles? some of these cities are 40, 50 square miles. They can't afford to put these firehouses that are necessary to get reasonable response times in their cities, because it's literally, you know, tens of millions of dollars worth of infrastructure, and then on an annual basis. So they farm it all out to the county, who has the opportunity to, you know, spread out those costs throughout their cities and towns and everything. So immediately I came back to Andy, and, you know, we were talking about it. That model doesn't work for us. I mean, we've tried Broward County. Our costs go up dramatically regardless of who the sheriff is, because we don't have that Davie Fire Department to rely on anymore right in the middle of our town. We've got to really rethink the model completely. So, I mean, I'm not saying it's not an option that we shouldn't continue as part of our normal due diligence to explore, but I couldn't find a model that fit us with probably 10 or 12 people I asked over the couple days.
Okay. So the event was a fun event, and a lot of people we knew, a lot of people we didn't, met a lot of new people. The meetings we attended in different events were informative. Some were better than others, but they were worthwhile. A lot of them don't apply to us because we don't have revenue streams from power companies or water companies or a lot of other stuff. So I would tell you probably 50% of them don't apply to us. So we went to the ones that we thought applied to us in different events and stuff. And it was an enjoyable time and camaraderie with colleagues, with people that we know in our same positions. And but it's always, I find it worthwhile to go to. So the Broward Days this year is in January in Tallahassee. The committee meetings start, I think, next month. With whatever we're pleading or asking for on money and basis on whether it's a fire struck or EOC building or whatever we're going after, or help purchase the land or whatever, we're going to be on it and stay on it as we always do. We've been extremely successful in with our lobbyists and with our attorney on bringing back money to this town to help with issues that we have. So I just want to state all that. And something else you want? Go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to make a
Sure.
couple of real brief comments here. It had to do with the meeting the other night, and my understanding, and I wasn't intending on including Diamond Eye in that, and that is basically why I voted the way I did. But going back to some of the comments that were made, I'm not quite sure what not that much commercial. It's not that commercial. Commercial to me, and I could be wrong, is to turn profit. That's why you're in business, to make money. So when someone comes to me and says, well, I'm not making any money, I know horse farms in Southwest ranches that have made, by renting their stalls, enormous amounts of money. I rented mine at one time. I didn't have ag, but I did rent. I had a friend that wanted to come in, and she bought 2 other people, and I rented. I didn't go broke or belly up doing that. So I don't agree with that theory. And but like I said, I did not intend on including Diamond Eye in my vote. And I think I'll leave it at that.
Okay.
Hey, Doug, I did have a question for you and Dee. Remember we kind of passed in the hallway and
Yeah.
you guys were going to the telecommunications update?
Yes.
And I went next door. Was there anything beneficial that came out of that discussion?
It wasn't that informative, but it was clear that 5G will not be coming anytime soon.
Really?
Yes. Yes.
Most of the expansions you see on the poles and on the wires and mounted individually are an upgrade to the 4G.
Current technology.
Yeah.
Right, and you could actually
I think it's
get,
probably going to be usable for 5G,
Sure.
which time it kicks in. That would be my guess. They didn't state that, but being all the opposition that's happening in Florida against it,
Right.
that they're tending to go California, easier places that,
Big, massive areas. I mean,
Right.
they've got to be huge. We didn't fit in that at all.
Right.
And Gary Resnick was one of the speakers there.
well, he also represents us.
Yes.
Sure.
But was very informative and pretty much assured us not in our lifetimes. So,
Did you reach out to resident Eastman and let him know that he can stop worrying? Because I know this is a big issue for him.
Yeah, I gave him a heads up.
I have
He,
spoken
fa-
to
he,
him.
he found it hard to believe considering there's
Yes.
things already on the highways and
Yes.
turnpike and
Well,
whatnot.
I mean, you just explained why. That's upgrades to the current technology because we all have cell phones. We know how often they drop.
The one
Right.
place they looked at was what, Jacksonville? I think
Yeah,
it was
that's where they-
Jacksonville, and even that
Really?
was not good for them.
That's great news.
Yes, it's wonderful.
Good. Thank you.
It's
Yeah,
absolutely
no
wonderful.
problem. All right. Legal comments.
Sure, I'm just writing my notes from comments that you made. Just a couple of quick things. First off, I thank those council members who participated with the Florida League of Cities event. It's so important to show ourselves up there, and by sending the majority of the council, we were well represented. I also want to thank Councilmember Hartman for calling me during the meetings to say, hey, is there anyone, I ought to speak to while I'm up here? And I suggested to figure out who the incoming board is and the new directors, because they do their swap right now. Because if you all recall that, the year prior, Pembroke Pines, made a local bill, a delegation to de-annex a big portion of the town and to put it into Pembroke Pines. So as a result, we went ahead and tried to push through a bill that actually was passed, but our section was eliminated, that would prohibit Pines from doing that in the future unless we consented it. And our bill had made it to the final day of session, final vote of the Senate, and had already passed the House. Speaker was very supportive of us. And Pembroke Pines hired 3 lobbyists in the waning days of session to kill our bill. And the Florida League of Cities hired a lobbyist to kill our bill. And between the 4 lobbyists who were paid huge sums of money, it's all reported, you can see it online, our bill didn't make it through final reading. I mentioned it, but the audience wasn't as big when this occurred, so I'll just mention it again. Truly special thanks to Senator Farmer, who's not even our senator, did everything in his power to keep our bill alive in the Senate because of the potential conflicts from our own senator and how the district boundaries are crafted and how it operates. So we will continue to plug away on that issue, and I thank Councilmember Hartman for calling me to remind me about that while he's up there, because the more that you all get to interact with the other people, hopefully one day we can get it passed. And I think you mentioned something to me about Pembroke Pines with the league, about the number of, what was that? I'll let you can say it. So.
Yeah, there were the mayor and 4 council members sit on their board of directors. I mean, I walked in there and I'm like, oh, look who's here. The one thing, and I know, Keith, it's your time, but I got a question.
Yeah.
We need to strategize on how we can get this passed, because, I mean, it's not just protecting us, it's protecting every city in a similar situation as our town is in. And, one thing I learned about this last thing is this was the city side of the equation. This is not the state legislative side of the equation. If we sit here and talk about this all night, we're tipping our hand. How do we strategize on this so that we can effectively get our ideas across to the right people? So just in case they're listening tonight,
we can't do it through a shade session because there's no litigation on that particular topic. But I will tell you that the most similarly situated municipality who 100% stands behind us is Pembroke Park, because they're having in Broward, there's others throughout the state in Broward, because they're having the same issues with their neighbors as well.
Okay.
And the way that Pembroke Park did it is they appointed one commissioner amongst them to take the lead into trying to push the ideas and the issues through and to collectively do it. Andy, I apologize, but I forgot the commissioner's name who they appointed. But he's come to the town, and it's something we can discuss further, but maybe you all do the same thing and have one commissioner be the one, council member, be the one to go back to Pembroke Park and be your champion to try to collectively use our assets and connections to try to get it through.
I mean, using the approach we used last year with Southern Strategies, I mean, that got us pretty far. But
Almost to the finish line.
yeah.
You're
And-
not going to compete financially.
Well, that's the point. So, how do we influence the right people, the new speaker, the new president of the Senate, and as well, whoever's got the influence other than through our lobbyists?
Relationship.
Well, that's the point. That's the point. And that's the League of Cities, that's the Broward League, that's
All of it.
all those things. So we've got to focus on a message. And that's what I mean by strategize. I mean, that's the way we do it at work, right? We come up with a single way that we want to, or multiple alternatives on how we want to address this, and then we start working the process. But, here, standing in front of a TV camera, we broadcast our strategy to the world. They don't do that in boardrooms, do they? Anyway, what do I know? Thank you, Keith.
No worries. Thank you for the call again. Another two issues that I'm looking at from my notes. A resident was speaking about the fire assessment and about ambulances. I just want to clarify so that no one's confused. Fire assessment's fire. You're not legally allowed to include EMS in a fire assessment. So it has nothing to do with ambulances responding to anywhere. This is only dealing with fire. So I just want to clarify that. There was a question that Councilmember Schroeder made about ag. In order to get a agricultural tax classification, you have to show an intent to make a profit. So if you don't show an intent to make a profit, you cannot get ag. That is the Hornbook law on how you can actually apply for ag.
Is that in the planning? Like you go before them and say, this is my plan, this is what I intend to do?
Every year through filing of your schedules, depending which branch of ag you're seeking, and when you do your initial submittals to the property appraiser.
No, but what I'm saying is you don't just go and say, okay, this is what I intend to do, and they say, okay, you have your ag.
No.
It takes more than that,
Yes.
because that's where I guess I messed up the first time I ever applied. That was back in Mr. Markham's days, with a stallion on the property, with intent of breeding and, whatever, because you had to have something like that, and was denied.
It's a business.
It's a business.
Simple as that.
Yeah.
It's a business.
It's a business.
So I just wanted to clarify that. Other than that, no further legal comments.
Okie doke. Mr. Burns, you're up to bat.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Just a couple of things. But first, just to Fred Cox, while I appreciate you working to track me down, I just want to let you know I don't live in Deerfield Beach. I don't think I even know anybody who lives in Deerfield Beach. Wasn't me. Wasn't me. If it was, I would tell you, but it's not me, Fred. Okay. Second is we had gotten some new signs in on the Crime Watch. Which
In the mic a little bit. Sorry.
which I have here to show all of you. We'd gotten some more of these in. We ordered in 30. Working with Detective Habalis to get some of these placed in some high-profile areas around town. If council would like to make them available to residents, we could. Our cost on these is, including the sign and the freight's about $36, $37 if anybody wanted one to put up at their home. But we got, yeah. So these match what the Davy has with the eye on crime. So they're kind of high profile, jump out. We just want to send a message to the bad guys that we're keeping an eye on things. So you'll start seeing some more of these around town. So we've had some in the past. We just got some more in. I wanted to share that with you.
Explain about the holes that are already in it, but from the back, would you please?
Yes, as an old sign guy, I can
Hold
tell you-
on.
As an old sign guy, I can tell you this is 080 aluminum with a vinyl reflective overlay, which is pre-drilled. It has holes in the back, which is pre-drilled at a standard distance to put in like a regular U-channel signpost. So all you need to do is punch a bolt through the vinyl overlay. You're good to go, and no drilling any holes. Just put some bolts up. Galvanized recommended, and away you go.
Awesome. Thank you, sir.
So what you're putting into. And Mayor?
Sir.
The other thing I wanted to talk about, we talked about this a little bit the other night, and I just did want to touch on this as part of the fire study methodology. I had suggested to you all that we consider forming, I don't want to say an advisory board, but a committee more short term. And I suggested that maybe each council member might want to make 2 recommendations to get 10 people on there to talk about what we want to do, get some public input for you prior to you guys having a workshop and discussing some of that methodology. So what I'd like to do is put that on the next agenda for September 12th to formalize that and give you all a little time to think about that and maybe get your names to me. I'll reach out to Councilmember Piscitelli and chat with him to make him aware of it, bring him up to speed on this as well. But how do you want to treat barns? How do you want to treat businesses? How do you want to treat single-family homes? You know, there was a discussion last time whether that was per square foot or per home. So that kind of input, I think, might be helpful to get from the public prior to you guys considering that and deciding what you want to do with that methodology. So I'll ask you again to think about that. I'll bring it back on the 12th, and we'll be looking to get some names on there to get some input to you all as quickly as we can.
You want names by the 12th?
If I can.
You'd like 'em?
Would certainly like that, yes.
Yep.
So
And then
one of
3 weeks from tonight, we have an extra week.
I'm going to jump in and join you just for 1 second on the fire study stuff. The last fire study that was done in 2011 was done for the purpose of square footage. Bob, you had mentioned that on Tuesday night. But the main reason for that fire study was for the smaller homes from, 1,500 to 2,500 square feet, or 3,000 to be at this rate, and 3,000 to 6,000 at this rate, and 6,000 and up at a different rate. So that study initially, when it was done for that purpose. We actually implemented that study with the square footage, and I don't know, it was the next or the second meeting, they brought it back and changed it back to what it was, okay? I was not part of that vote. I disagreed with the change. I voted for the square footage, and I did not vote for changing it back to what it was. Wanted to stick with the square footage. So just want to set the record clear on what that initial study was and why it was. But clearly, we did not look at the ag and the commercial stuff properly or right or whatever. But moving forward, we're going to get that done.
I think the formulas were just adjusted for what we had at the time for all the categories, because that's part of the fire study. But you're right, the focus was on residential fire fees.
Yeah. So I don't remember if it was the mayor at that time that got a bunch of phone calls from a lot of people with bigger homes or whatever, but it got changed back to what it was pretty quickly.
That's my recollection.
So I just wanted to share that with everybody.
Yeah, we had a crowd here like the other night, tractor supply and, all that good stuff. So.
All right. Resolution number 8.
Mayor,
Yep,
sorry, I just
go
saw
ahead.
a note.
Sure.
There's one more thing on legal, just so I can say, because
Go right ahead.
one of you mentioned 5G. Our ordinance is now basically invalid because of the change to state law. So Andy authorized me to retain Gary Resnick again.
Yep.
Underneath the procurement number of $5,000 to once again rewrite our telecom ordinance and bring it back to the council to comply with the new state guidelines. Gary says he's almost finished with that. The funding came right from legal because we're way under this year, so it was not a problem just to pay it under the legal budget. So I
Okay.
just wanted to advise you of that. The final thing is Andy had prepared a decorum policy that was given to the council to review, and just wanting to know what the status is if the council wants to bring that back as a ordinance to try to deal with civility at council meetings.
I'm yes on that.
I think yes. That's my opinion. I think it should be put on the website.
Decorum.
The people should know about it. Put it up on the board, whatever you have to do, But there should be a decorum. It's not permitted in a lot of other municipalities, and it doesn't need to go on here.
I think basically it's so, people are welcome to come and complain and gripe all you want, but personal attacks we don't want.
No.
Go ahead. Your mic's not on.
Russell, we have these wonderful cameras, video cameras. Maybe what you can do is put it up at the beginning of meetings for the next couple of months, so that when people come in, they can see, thou shalt not attack your fellow neighbors. So, thank you.
Okay. All right, number 8, please, sir.
This is a resolution of the Town Council of the Town of Southwest Ranches, Florida, accepting the Hazard Mitigation Grant Program funding from the Federal Emergency Management Agency in the amount of $105,750.00 for a generator for the Southwest Ranches Fire Station. Approving the budget for the project in the fiscal year 2019-2020 budget and allocating the town required match in the amount of $35,250.00 and an additional $7,000.00 for maintenance, authorizing the mayor, town administrator, and town attorney to enter into an agreement and providing for an effective date.
Make a motion to approve.
Second. Not a race. You win.
Nope.
Any
Nope,
public
you can-
comment on this matter?
Of course.
900 amps? That's what that works out to. Who's got a house that's got 300 amps for their service for their house? Even a big house. Just look at the fuse box, count the amount of breakers. That's an awful big generator, like the one we got over here. Have you ever cranked that thing up? What's it cost to load bank it? What's it cost to maintain the 1,000-gallon fuel tank in there? Algae grows in that. It's Florida. Used to have a boat with twin 8V92s in it. I know what it costs to maintain those engines. This is only a 6-cylinder turbocharged, but you're never going to run it hard. When you don't run a diesel hard, you have all kinds of internal problems in the engine. You should already know what they're like because you've had that generator out there long enough. You're going to have to maintain it. You just don't need it unless this grant you're getting requires you to have this to even qualify for the grant. But half that size would make sense, and it'd still be more than you need. That's 3 trailers bolted together. Come on, let's think about this and not make the same mistake. You got the records, you got the maintenance reports on it. You should know what it costs to maintain the beast you got next door. Thank you.
Joel Hollingsworth, 199th Avenue. The way this was written this time, this resolution, is the way every grant resolution that comes before you should be.
Thank you.
Because in the past, what you have done is you said we've got a grant of $105,000, and you forget, and then the next meeting, you get a budget change that you guys pass, which is the rest of the money. And that's what you've been doing in the past for years and years. You never say exactly how much you're having and built it all in. This is the first time you've put it where it is clear to everybody how much it's going to actually cost us. And I've got up before and I said, this is a grant. You say it's an 80% grant. What's the other 20%? And then someone over there on the right tells us the amount. And the next meeting, you do a budget adjustment. This is the first time you're doing it all at one time. I'd like to thank you for that. And I wish in the future, every grant that comes before us, that it's a percentage grant. Even if it's a 100% grant, say it's a 100% grant. Do it this way in the future. This is clear and transparent. Thank you.
David Sears, 5501 Southwest 130th Avenue. This generator seems quite awful large from what you guys use for a mobile home trailer. That when a storm comes, you know how they have to relocate the Station 91 because that trailer will probably blow away. So I hope you're going to use this generator. I wonder if it could be moved when you guys get a permanent structure for these firefighters that are out there trying to save our lives when we have a problem.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Any additional public comment? Seeing no additional public comment is closed. Back to us.
Yeah, I'll jump in, man.
Go ahead, Gary.
And Andy, this is for the future. We can move this generator to a new location if we move one out west eventually. Our
Absolutely.
long-term
We'll
goal.
be able to pick it up and move it to a permanent location.
Okay,
Yeah.
good. So that answers that question right off the bat. I think it's an excellent idea. I've talked to you about it for a couple of years now, especially after Hurricane Irma hit us, and we had the possibility, luckily we didn't have to do it, but we had the possibility where the engine, the fire station over on 172nd would be unmanned because it would have no power. And it would have doubled and tripled our response times during those critical week or two after the hurricane before power was restored. This would mitigate that, and it, God forbid we have a need for that again in the future. Hopefully we'll be like last year and we'll get lucky and get missed, this year and in future years. But that will definitely benefit us if we if we have it, for life-saving emergencies. So I want to mention that.
Anyone else?
Yeah, just a couple things.
Go ahead.
Hey, Keith, thanks for finally getting it right based on Newell's feedback all these years. So thank you, Newell.
I'd like to also thank Emily and Marty for getting me the information timely this time.
Just a couple things. I mean, in my prior responsibilities in my professional life, I've been responsible for generators for data centers and things like that. And I just want to run a couple things out there to make sure Andy's done his homework and that we're comfortable. I mean, typically these things have controllers that make them run once a week at varying power levels so that you're not just running it at 500 RPMs. Typically, the maintenance agreements on these also require fuel testing monthly, a couple times a year, quarterly. It just depends on what you want to pay for. Typically, nobody drains the tanks because that little bit that's run over 5 years runs it down, but you're constantly replenishing it, you're topping it off. So there's a number of things, and then there's obviously they give it the once over on some period, inspecting it to make sure there aren't any frayed belts or anything like that. So, Andy, I'm sure you've done your homework on this, so I just want to make sure we've covered at least the simple points.
Yeah, we have. The maintenance, just for comparison's sake, the generator that we have here at Town Hall is the 350 kilowatt generator. That service runs every single week. It's a scheduled program,
Monday.
Maintenance run on Mondays. And we have it serviced quarterly where they come in and completely check it out and do fuel testing as well. The proposed generator now for the fire station is only 150 kilowatts, but it'll be serviced the same way on the same program.
And the cost?
Oh, I'm sorry, the cost for that would be about $2,500 annually.
Annually?
Annually.
Good.
So one other thing I want to add in, I don't know if everybody recalls, but last storm we had, we ended up like being almost an EOC building here. If you would explain that, Andy, what happened? We had the police sleeping in here in sleeping bags.
It was
So
actually
jump in
interesting.
and Davey had a problem with their
The
generator.
Davie Police Department apparently didn't do their generator maintenance at their department, and so they wound up without any power at the Davie PD. So we became their default EOC. We had cots set up everywhere in this building. We had Davie PD here for a couple of days. Became their base of operations. All the chairs were aside. There were cots in here. There were cots in the hallway. They were everywhere. So our generator maintenance program was better than theirs. And another thing I wanted to add, Mayor, is because it is a modular unit, it's almost 3,000 square feet. What's out there? It's not a small little trailer.
Yeah, it's pretty big.
And they plug in trucks and everything else.
We moved them out of there correctly, as I think Mr. Lasky said. We moved them out there in the event of a storm. The problem is, after Irma, that station was without power for 2.5 days. And if that's our base of operation to service the west side of the community, we need to be able to get them back there as quickly as possible once that storm passes. And if we don't have power, we can't do that.
Without a doubt. Without a doubt. So, all right. So we've got a motion and a second. Call the question, please.
Councilmember Hartman?
Yes.
Councilmember Schroeder?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Jablonski?
Yes.
Mayor McKay?
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right. Number 9.
This is a resolution of the Town Council of the Town of Southwest Ranches, Florida, approving the First Amendment to the interlocal agreement, excuse me, with Broward County, providing for the division and distribution of the proceeds of the transportation system surtax, authorizing the mayor, town administrator, and town attorney to execute said agreement and providing an effective date.
Motion to approve?
Second.
Any public comment on this matter? Seeing none, public comment closed. Back to us. Any discussion on this matter? Nope. Good. All right. Call the question.
Councilmember Hartman?
Yes.
Councilmember Schroeder?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Jablonski?
Yes.
Mayor McKay?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Right. Approval of minutes. Need a motion still.
Motion to approve both?
Both. Is that what you said,
Yes.
Gary?
Yes, yes, ma'am.
Second.
Okay. Any public comment on this? We've had our minutes corrected in the past. Seeing none, public comment is closed. Any corrections up here for any of us? Seeing none, call the question.
Councilmember Hartman?
Yes.
Councilmember Schroeder?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Jablonski?
Yes.
Mayor McKay?
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right.
Motion to adjourn.
I'll take it. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for coming out.
Good night, Andy. Thanks for all your help.